Hey, welcome to UK Wildcrafts. So if you're completely new to foraging, and this video is designed to help you confidently identify 5 common plants in the UK. And these plants can all be found in spring and summer, which is the best time to be learning foraging. So I've chosen these plants for 3 reasons. They're all common in most of the UK and Europe. They're nice and easy to identify, and that they're quite easy to tell from any poisonous plants. This is Dandelion. All parts of this plant are edible. This is probably the plant that I eat most of, because I'll pick some most mornings to have in a green smoothie. The leaves are nice to eat them raw. You can have them in salad. They can be a little bit bitter, so you can also cook them to take away some of the bitterness. Dandelion is very common and can be picked all year. The leaves are better in spring before the flowers have opened. You can see they're just about starting to open here. The good thing about dandelion is that you can just keep picking the leaves and they will grow back. The leaves of dandelion are very deeply toothed, and the central stem, also called the midrib, sometimes has a bit of a purple colour, like that one there. The yellow flowers are also edible. I like to just chuck them in a salad sometimes for a bit of colour. And the stems, the flower stem, is smooth and hollow. And when you cut them or pick them, you'll get a milky white sap come out of them. And dandelion roots are edible as well. I rarely bother with them though. I don't think they're very nice, and there's much better roots around. If you do want to give them a try, just make sure you do it on your own property, in your own garden, because it is illegal to dig up wild plants on public land or on private land without the landowner's permission. The most important rule to stick to if you're going to start foraging is if you pick a plant, you've got to be able to identify it 100% before you eat it. If you've got any doubts about it, just don't eat the plant, and it's better to pick it, take it home and research it from some foraging books, or to go out with a professional or experienced forager. Another plant I eat a lot of in spring and early summer is the stinging nettle. This is actually one of the most nutritious plants we have here in the UK. And it's a good idea to wear gloves when you're picking it if you don't want to get stung. And what you want to do is just pick the top part, the growing part, because that is where most of the nutrition is. And cooking the nettle will take away the sting. So you can ID the nettle by the leaves, which are quite sharply toothed, and they grow in opposing pairs that alternate up the stem. So you see the leaves join at the same point on the stem, and then they alternate up the stem. So 2 that way and then 2 on the other side, and that goes all the way up the stem. There's not really much you can mistake the nettle for, apart from maybe the dead nettles, which look very similar. They are edible as well. And also the dead nettles do not sting. The only thing you really need to be aware of when picking nettles is that you should avoid eating nettles in the summer when they have started to flower, because when the plant is in flower, the leaves can contain crystals that upset the urinary tract. So yeah, it's best to only eat in the spring or early summer, or it's also okay if the plant has been cut back and you get fresh growth. It's only when the plant has flowers on them. You can also eat the seeds of stinging nettles. I've done a video on that. I'll leave a link in the description of this video. Wild garlic is often one of the first plants a forager learns. It has a distinctive onion garlic smell when you crush the leaves, and this is good for the forager because an onion smell means it's in the onion or Allium family, and all Alliums are edible. In fact, all parts of Allium plants are edible, from the seeds, flowers, leaves, stems, and even the bulbs underground, although you should never dig up any plant unless you have the landowner's permission. Wild garlic has long, narrow leaves and it has a pronounced white midrib on the underside, and the veins in the leaf run parallel to that midrib. And the leaves are straight edged, so there's no teeth or lobes. The plant to be aware of when picking wild garlic is lily of the valley, which is highly toxic. The leaves of both plants look fairly similar, but as long as you're checking the leaves have that strong oniony garlic smell, then it's fine. Also, the leaves of wild garlic grow as a single leaf per stem that grow from the base of the plant, whereas lily of the valley will have several leaves per stem. Wild garlic leaves can usually be found from late February depending on your location, and look for wild garlic in shady woodlands. The unopened flower buds usually appear from around early April, although these ones are starting quite early in mid to late March here. So that's one of the flower buds there, which will open into a small white flower. Another thing to be aware of when you're picking wild garlic, and this applies to foraging any plant really, is to take care and only pick one leaf at a time, not be grabbing handfuls, because it can be quite easy to pick out other plants as well. Like grown in the same habitat as this wild garlic, here is an arum lily, and these are poisonous. And while the bigger leaves are quite easy to tell the difference from wild garlic, if you look at some of the younger leaves, like that here, that can quite easily be picked in amongst your wild garlic. So yeah, there's some more there. So yeah, just be very careful, pick out one plant at a time, and until you're really familiar with the leaf, it's probably a good idea to check the smell, the onion smell on every leaf, because these ones, the arum lilies, they don't have a scent. And if you're completely new to foraging, it is a good idea to learn any of the poisonous plants that might be growing in the area. Another little safety tip is to be careful where you're picking plants from. Be careful around fields, like farmers' fields, because if plants are looking like they're dying off when they're still in season and going yellow, there's a chance the farmer might have sprayed them with pesticides. And also be careful of pathways where there's a lot of dog walkers, because you don't really want to be picking plants that dogs have weed on. This is clover. There are lots of different species of clover, but you'll usually find either white or red clover, which you can tell later in the summer by the colour of the flowers. They've got a nice mild pea flavour, and they are a member of the pea family. Clover normally has 3 leaves, and they have a white chevron arrow on the leaves. The only thing you'll really mistake clover for is wood sorrel, which has a similar looking 3 leaves, but they're heart-shaped. And there you can see the leaves and the stems of clover are quite hairy. You can eat the leaves and the flowers of clover. The leaves will start appearing in March and the flowers from around May or June. You'll find clover in pretty much any patch of grassland. They especially like land that's been well trodden, so maybe like a path in a field. And you can test this out by looking in your garden. If you've got a lawn, then check the bits of lawn that you walk over the most, like maybe heading towards a shed, and there's a good chance you'll find clover along that track. So please remember to forage sustainably. Don't strip a whole area bare of the plants. Make sure you're leaving some for wildlife and enough for the plants to recuperate and grow again next year. This is the bramble bush. Nice easy one to identify, and they grow on pretty much any patch of wasteland or in city parks. And the leaves are oval and sharply toothed. These are actually the leaves from last year that have stayed on the bush over winter. And the stems are long and trailing, usually with a bit of a reddish tinge to them, and the thorns, which are very sharp, are usually red as well. So the bramble bush is what produces blackberries, which you can pick usually from late summer through to around October. This time of year though, in the spring, what we're after is this fresh bright green growth here, and this is the new stems and leaves forming, and these are edible. Just pick them off and you can eat them raw, although I find they've got a bit of a strange flavour raw. What I like to do is just lightly fry them in butter, and they're quite nice like that. And this is a good example really of foraging. You want to eat with the season, so it's whatever the plant is putting its energy into at that point of the year. So now in the spring, the plant is putting its energy into the fresh growth, the leaves, so that's what you want to be eating. In the summer and autumn, it's putting its energy into the fruit, so you want to be eating the fruit then. And with other plants, maybe in the winter, they'll be putting the energy into its roots. So plants that have edible roots, that's probably when you want to be eating them, in the winter. Thanks for watching UK Wildcrafts. So I recommend you learn these 5 plants and learn everything there is to know about them and what they look like in different stages, different times of the year, and then move on, select a few more plants and learn everything there is to know about them.